Hello YouTube! Today I will be showing you the strengths, weaknesses, and a build skeleton for the Herald ascendancy, which is for the Witch. First of all, I need to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is that you cannot avoid taking this node kind of in a similar way to the Behemoth ascendancy. So what this node will do is it will disable all of your aura skills. Note that there are a lot of reservation skills that are not auras, such as Tempest Shield, Frost Armor, and also the it's called like Temporal Rift or something. But my point is there are options. This isn't completely disabling all reservation, and it gives you 200% increased mana reservation efficiency of Herald skills. This is enough to run every single Herald in the game, and is also potentially allows you to run a fully linked Herald of Agony or fully linked Herald of Purity if you're doing the Minion version of this ascendancy. The next node you are forced to take requires you to specialize in one specific herald. I wish you could take two from here, but I am 98% sure they're only going to let you select one, which is fine. You can still take value of them. The two most interesting ones to me are Future Guilt. This gives you 15% additional physical damage reduction while affected by Herald of Purity. Note that every single one of these nodes is going to give you 100% increased buff effect of the Herald you are specializing in. Then we have Future Fear, which is 100% increased buff effect for Herald of Ice and +5 maximum cold resistance. Note that all three of these at the bottom are essentially the same. It just gives you a different type of maximum resistance and a different kind of buff effect. The other super strong one is Future Nostalgia, which gives you 100% increased Herald of Agony buff effect and 75% chaos resistance. This synergizes very well with the next node we can talk about, which is Damnation. Gain additional elemental damage reduction equal to half your chaos resistance. That extra chaos damage, chaos resistance is generally hard to acquire on gear, so that 75% is about 2.5 affixes for chaos resistance. That can allow you to run Damnation easier, and it can also allow you to run a Divine Flesh setup. And what Divine Flesh will do is it will convert 50% of all elemental damage you take to chaos damage, and also give you +5 maximum chaos resistance. If you have Divine Flesh and Damnation, you will essentially be taking no elemental damage. You don't need to run the two of those together. You can run them separately. In fact, it makes sense in many cases to just run Damnation. It is also worth mentioning that the Damnation notable is based off of the unique amulet called Eternal Damnation, which has the same line: gain additional elemental damage reduction equal to half your chaos resistance. Potentially that effect could stack with Damnation. That information is not in the FAQ. My personal belief is that it won't, but if it does, this will give you elemental damage reduction equal to your full chaos resistance. So you could end up with 80% elemental damage reduction off of that node. Potentially very strong. Next, Retribution. This is also very strong. It gives you elemental conflux when you kill an enemy, 20% chance. What this buff does is it causes all of your elemental damage types to be able to chill, shock, and ignite. So regardless of your damage type, you could potentially scale something like Heat Shiver, would be an easy example. Or you could run an Ignite-based setup with a triple Herald Blade Vortex, which I'll talk a little bit about that later. Now we have, next we have Apocalypse, which is +3 level of all Herald skill gems. This is not very good for spell damage or damage-based Herald skills that are just trying to capitalize on the buff, but it's extremely powerful for the Herald of Agony Crawler and for Herald of Purity. So let's talk about those real quick. So this is Scourge. So this is the other node that you'll be taking if you're going Minion Ascendancy. It's pretty straightforward. If you're playing Minions, you're going to go the first node, then you're going to go Future Guilt or Future Nostalgia. Then you're going to go Scourge, +2 maximum numbers of Sentinels of Purity, +25 maximum Virulence. Virulence is a mechanic with the Herald of Agony Crawler. and minions deal 66% increased damage while you're affected by Herald, which is going to be always, and then you get +3 level of Herald skill gems, and these two synergize very well with each other, and we can expect that Herald of Agony is going to have some very good damage numbers this league. Some people are saying that damage was never Herald of Agony's problem, and that they would rather have a more defensive ascendancy, so there's some discussion on that, but I'm sure there's some minion players that are more informed than me that can give you an example of exactly how strong that is in the meta. But yeah, just know that it is an option, and if you want to build a build around it, it will in fact work. Lastly, we have Persecution, which is +5 to base critical strike chance of Herald skills. This is very important because Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder cannot crit normally. So they have 0 base crit, so no matter how much crit you scale on the tree, you would have 0% chance to crit. Now they have 5%, so we can scale it. And then it has Herald skills have 50% increased area of effect. This is very good, once again, for Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder, because you can scale the AoE of those Herald skills. So wonderful, wonderful node if you want to explode the entire screen. This is going to be very similar to how the Surf Caster is going to blow up the entire screen. You'll be able to do that with this build as well. Next, I'm going to talk about how you could league start this. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think the Surfcaster is just straight up better in a league start environment and potentially in the late game, but we can leverage what we're good at to basically scale damage easier, assuming that we can get a hold of the things we need. And let me show you what I mean by that in path building. So the first thing to note about this build is we need to take advantage of these medium clusters that are 10% increased damage while affected by a Herald. These are important because there's 2 very strong nodes attached to them. One is nearby enemies have cold exposure, fire exposure, or lightning exposure based on which Herald you're running. You have 200% increased mana reservation of efficiency of Herald skills. Run all of them, gain exposure to all elements. Very cool. It's a very significant boost to DPS. Then we have this node, Endbringer, and it is 5% increased damage for each Herald affecting you. We always have between 3 and 4 Heralds on us. Actually, between 4 and 5, we could add Herald of Ash. So this is at least 20% increased damage, and or it could be 25. So this is either 45% increased damage or 40% increased damage, depending on which Heralds you're running. Very nice. It's not showing as a big increase because I have other sources of increased damage in this build, so it's not showing as being that big. It's only about 5%. But yeah, so that's something that's important. The next important node is this one. You're going to rush this node early. It's 15% increased damage for each Herald affecting you. If I make a new version of this build really quickly, and I just start as a witch, right? And I just add all the Heralds, Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ash, Herald of Ice. Oops, sorry, wrong Herald. Herald of Purity, Herald of Ice. And I use any physical skill. It needs to be physical in some way. In this case, let's just pick Divine Ire. Probably not a good choice, but let's just say it's Divine Ire. We're running 4 Heralds. Let's add Herald of Agony. And let's go ahead and in our configuration put in 200%. Increased mana reservation. Let's not do it that way then. Let's add let's add this to our build, which will give us no, not Retribution. Where are you? Should be Coming Calamity, right? Yeah, Coming Calamity. Save that jewel. Sorry that this is taking so long, but this is an important thing for everybody to know. if we have Coming Calamity and we have these heralds, picking up Discord Artisan is going to double our damage, essentially. So if you are going to run this ascendancy, you need to make sure that by the time you finish lab, you have this node. And you will see that we still have 58% of our mana left. So we could even run another reservation, like maybe a Tempest Shield, and we would be completely fine. This node is going to completely carry our leveling experience. And I think this ascendancy actually will have one of the better leveling experiences based solely off of that. If we go to POE Ninja, because I also want to show Herald of Agony setups, because it's not an extremely popular build because it doesn't clear very well, but you see it's often done on like the Juggernaut, but what we're doing is going to be more similar to how people are building it on the Witch. You see that they're investing extremely heavily into defenses, so they're using a lightning coil. They're running these to increase the power of Herald of Agony and reduce the mana cost of Herald of Agony, and then they just do a full-on... oh wait, am I trolling? Is this... oh my god! This isn't even a Herald of Agony crawler build. This is a... No, it's mana damage support. It is a Herald of Agony crawl build. He just confused me when I saw the Storm Rain. But yeah, so you can look at POE Ninja if you want examples of how people are building Herald of Agony. But if I were you, I would go to like a week 2 snapshot of Herald of Agony, because then people are going to have much more manageable gear. It'll be easier to tell what's going on. You can see that this person was running a similar setup using Ascendancy Gentle Touch for clear. And I hate ads, and I need to remove them from this computer. But anyways, so long story short, this ascendancy is going to be good. The benefit of it is it's a bunch of front-loaded power. The downside is I don't think there's a lot of late-game potential outside of the Herald of Agony setup. Like if you see this path of building that I created earlier, Herald. What I ended up going for was a Blade Vortex Heat Shiver setup. So this will have very good... There's no real gear here, but this will have very good clear in maps. We're scaling area of effect, and if you'll go into the calculation for our Herald of Ice, you can see that our radius is 2 meters. So each mob, as long as it dies... and there's another mob at least that close, is going to be affected by the explosion. And that's really massive for our clear. And it's made possible by a 50% increased area of effect from persecution. So I think it'll be a good build. Obviously, this is just the skeleton of a build. Don't like copy this one for one. You copy a different regular Blade Vortex Witch build, and then add aspects from here as needed. I also think Eternal Damnation is Damnation's extremely strong. You could run, say, a Lightning Coil like you saw the other builds going, and convert physical to elemental, and then have elemental reduction. So I think we have lots of good defensive options as well. But I think in the late game, there are going to just be better builds. I think Surfcaster is actually a better Herald Ascendancy if you want to blow the screen up, because of 100% critical strike chance and a few other notable mechanics like lightning damage converted to cold damage. But this one will, I feel like more of the power is front-loaded. So this is a solid option in my opinion, and I've now talked myself in a circle. So good luck, YouTube, and I will see you in the next video.